Time for a quick commercial.
That's right, Ellie. This episode is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And they'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. To get started, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm today.
Hey everyone, I know it's been a long time, but Daddy's podcast is starting right now.
Welcome back to the Lessons for Success show. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, middle school science teacher and high school football coach here in the great state of South Carolina. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far, and I know we have a great episode lined up ahead of you. I just want to thank everyone who's been tuning into the episode so far. Hopefully you've been able to get something out of it and some valuable insight from some of the guests we've been able to have on the show. Remember, new episodes come out every Sunday, and the show is available on everywhere that podcasts can be found, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Keep up with the show on social media at L4S Show, that's the number 4, or use the hashtag L4S Show. Again, that's the number 4. You can also download and send in messages to the show by using the Anchor app. Feel free to send any questions or comments related to the show, and it could be featured in future episodes of the podcast.
Daddy, who are you talking to?
Tobi Antigha is entering his 3rd season in the Canadian Football League. After playing wide receiver his entire amateur career, Tobi switched to defensive line in order to take advantage of an opportunity to play professional football in the CFL. In this lesson for success, Tobi shares his journey in life, which includes his underdog story of earning a football scholarship and later an opportunity to become a professional football player. You can follow Tobi on Twitter at O_Louis92, and that's the number 2. Enjoy.
Basically, I've always lived in Tampa, Florida. Born and raised in Tampa, Florida. Didn't really start playing football until I was a junior in high school. I went to Steinbrenner High School. Well, first I went to Middleton High School, which is a school in the inner city of Tampa, in the inner city of Tampa. So I went there. Didn't play sports, or I played my freshman year of football, but I didn't really play because I wasn't that good. So I was one of those kids that just got a jersey and got a helmet and, cheered on the starters. So my first year of playing JV football was that. I didn't play my sophomore year. So those early 2 years, I was really focused on basketball. Basketball was actually my first love in terms of sports. I just loved the way that, you could really compete. You weren't really reliant on any other part of the team to do their job. It was, the guy with the ball and you, don't let him score, and that was really what, kind of I liked about it, because it allowed me to compete. And, it gave me a work ethic. It gave me a tenacity. I was strictly a defensive player now. Don't think I was out there getting buckets. I was trash on the offensive side of the ball. But the defense, I wasn't letting anybody score on me. That's something I took pride in. But ultimately, being at Middleton or being in that inner city school, my mom started to notice some character issues in me, being influenced by the kids and the people around me. So, she basically gave me an ultimatum. She said that you can either stay at the inner city school and not play sports, or you can go to a school of my choosing and, have the opportunity and the ability to play sports. And me, I've always been somebody who likes to compete. So, I took her word, and I made the move to a more stable environment, So I came out to Steinbrenner High School. I remember my junior year. Oh, and this is a brand new school. So my junior year was the first year, it's an inaugural year, and it's inaugural opening. And I remember my junior year, I was a terrible teammate. I was a terrible player, but also a terrible teammate. And my selfishness and my pride got in the way of, us succeeding in different aspects of being a team. And I didn't realize how bad of a teammate I was until, that next year. I didn't know how to. I was at a point where I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to, interact with different personalities. And, I wanted to win so bad that I didn't know how to channel that passion into a mechanism that will help the team grow. The way I channeled it, it really took away from everything that the team could be. So, once I learned that, it was a different story, and I kind of flipped the script going into my senior year. And I remember that, during the spring of my junior season, so we had finished the fall season and we were in spring football. And I'm always been a kid that's very high on myself and thinks highly of the what could be. So my whole goal was to be D1 or to go Division I and play D1 football. So I remember asking one of my position coaches, what he thought or where he thought I could play football at the next level. And, he kind of took his time and took a deep breath and gathered his thought. And he said, Toby, I don't think you'll play anything above D3 football. And like when he said that to me, it lit a fire underneath me, because that was the first time that, I really got somebody's realistic interpretation or a realistic opinion of what I was capable of. And I remember, so that football season was in May. So yeah, so spring football started in April, ended in May. And I remember at the end of that spring season, I was about 175 pounds. By the time that August rolled around for my senior year, I was 205 pounds. I had put on about 20, 25 pounds of just muscle just because of the words that one coach told me. And from that point, from the start of that spring session, I just committed myself to being in the weight room, doing a lot of field work. And, I just decided that, I'm not going to make his words become true, because I've always been somebody who has always gone against the grain when people try and, project their opinions on me. So, a lot of people would tell me what I am and am not capable of, and I've never been a fan of that. I've always resisted that because, you don't know me, you don't know what I do, my character, my will. So who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? And that's kind of the attitude that, I adopted at that point. And I remember going into my senior year, I was a different beast. Physically, mentally, I was a much better leader. I was able to rally guys and get guys on the same accord and really have this team camaraderie where we didn't have that the year before. A lot of the year before was, me chastising and me, pointing blame, even though there was a lot of blame to put on myself, but I would deflect and point out everybody else's flaws and not accept my own. And, that senior season, that's when I started to understand that there's a bigger picture. In order to be a good team, you have to have good leadership. You have to have good character. And, from that point, I just focused on, doing things the right way, learning how to correct my teammates, learning how to interact with them without them feeling like I'm being critical or like bashing them and being too critical on them. So once I got that, we had a fairly successful senior season. I had a pretty good year, although we were a wing T offense, which wing Ts are predicated on running the football.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get there would be some games where, I didn't get a pass thrown at me until the last 2 minutes when we needed a big play. That was kind of what we did is, we ran the ball, controlled the clock, and, if we're in it in the fourth quarter, we throw it up to Toby and see if he can make a play. Most of the times I did. But, I remember going through that whole process, thinking I was going to go, mid-level D1, all that stuff, and never really getting the traction that I so desired. And I remember, up until one point, I had emailed every low-level to mid-level Division I program in the nation. I emailed the receiver coach, the offensive coordinator, and I remember I was just sending out my film, sending out everything after the season. Like, I'm talking about everywhere, FIU, FAU, San Diego State, Hawaii. Like, I sent that stuff all over trying to, make that dream a reality of playing Division I football. And, I was getting frustrated to the point because nobody was really responding. I had teams come in. I had FIU look at me, FAU look at me, USF was looking at me, but nobody really offered me. Fordham would come in, Georgetown came in, Charleston Southern came in, but, nobody offered me. So I was kind of frustrated and like, why are you guys coming to see me if you guys aren't, going to offer me, or, just that whole frustration of the recruitment process. And I remember it was like December 21st or something like that. Because I was blessed enough to be in an all-star game for the county. And I remember this little old school named Presbyterian College came in, Coach Malone, and, talked to me. And then he showed up later at my practice. And I remember like the next day he offered me a scholarship. And I was like, I don't even know who PC is. Like, it doesn't even sound like a Division I school. But, I did my research, found that I was a Division I AA school. And I was elated at that point because it still gave me the opportunity of playing Division I football. And then, went on the visit, committed, and PC was my only offer. So, I made do with what I was given. And, I remember going to my freshman year at PC, which was, it was interesting. It was an adjustment, a big adjustment, being a city kid and coming to South Carolina in the urban country, practicing on the Ponderosa. I mean, that was a different experience, and not only leaving home, but getting adjusted to playing a Division I football game with mat drills and all the schedules of classes and study hall and doing all these things that you're required. It's kind of hard to get a balance there, but through that first year I was learning a lot. I was still a cocky, I wouldn't say like overly cocky like I was my junior year of high school, but I was still a little arrogant. I was still a little, conceited about, who I thought I was. I thought I was Terrell Owens. I thought I was T.O. I thought I was Ray. I thought I was all the great receivers, and it was really quick that I began to realize that I'm not like any of these guys. Them pads came on for the first time. But, going into, that freshman year was just an eye-opening experience. Like, it opened my eyes to how seriously you have to take this game and put the effort in order to get the results. And I remember it was like my sophomore year where I was like, I'm going to be good. Like, by any means necessary, I'm going to be good. Like, I remember, we had the receiver, Drico was starting in front of me. And, I feel a certain type of way about me not starting my sophomore year. But, that gave me the time to fix my perspective. And, a lot of times we get into a spot where it's not advantageous for us and we shut down. And, we got to use those times as athletes, as people, to really dissect and really reflect on the situation as a whole and get some sort of benefit from it. Because in life, everything's not going to go your way, but, you're going to be responsible for how your life turns out. You can't blame anybody else for anything that goes on in your life except you. So you have to take full responsibility, and you have to kind of, analyze the situation for what it is and get some sort of value from it. And, that sophomore year, that's what I did. I thought I should have been starting. Some of my teammates thought I should have been starting, but that wasn't the case. So, I did my dues, paid my time. And every time that my number was called, I made plays. Whenever I was in the rotation, boom, I did my best to do my job and do it to the best of my ability. And I did for the most part. And then I remember, just going in my junior year, having that understanding that I'm going to be the guy now. Like, there's no excuses for me to fail, to me to come up short. Like, I'm one of those people that puts the weight of the world on themselves, so I have to come through. You know, like I'm the type that puts that pressure on themselves to really make it, just so, you know, just so I can do it, you know, because I feel like if I don't put pressure on myself, then I'm going to be lackadaisical in my approach, or I'm going to overlook some things. No, I needed to put all the pressure on myself to really get me to focus in and lock in on the task at hand, which was being the best, you know, receiver that I could possibly be. And I remember that junior year was like a coming out party. Like it was a good year. It was a good year. I think I had 764 yards. I still remember.
Yeah.
I still remember all that. So let me not even say I think. Like, I remember everything. I had like 52 catches, 764 yards. That was an all-conference receiver, you know, and I was, you know, getting put on the map. And I remember, like, just that whole transition from sophomore year to junior year was something that, you know, was a blessing for me, because it was at that time that I had to detach from everything. Like, if it wasn't making me better at football, then I was done with it, you know? So it really made me detach and start to prioritize the things that I was doing in my own life. And, you know, because of that, you know, that priority list, you know, it made me, you know, just be very, very, what's the word I want to use, intentional about what I was doing and when I was doing it. So I remember, and it made me prepare. Like, I remember we had 7-on-7 days. So, you know, sophomore year after mat drills, we'd have mat drills in the morning, and then on the afternoon, twice a week, we'd throw the ball in 7-on-7. I remember those. And I remember, like, I get there 45 minutes to an hour before everybody would be out there, just so I could get some extra work in, just so I could work on my craft and define my skills, and, you know, really try to set myself up above and beyond the rest of my competition. And I remember, like, I was doing that all summer. Like, I was doing that all spring, all summer. I remember I'd be out there by myself. Like, I remember I used to hit up Caleb and Tammin about going, you know, after class and throwing the ball around, getting some routes in. And they say, you know, I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I was like, all right, cool. You know, and a lot of kids left it at that. They would say, all right, my quarterback isn't out there, I can't get better. You know, me, I was just like, all right, you're not out there, but I can at least do something out there to help me get better. So I'd be out there just running routes on air, looking crazy, you know, have people riding by the school like, what is he doing out there? You know, I remember Coach Dunnigan would be one of those guys, and Coach Bork would see me out there, and they'd be like, man, he's just, like, it was either he's crazy or he's committed. And, you know, and I was fine with both, because I think you got to be crazy to be that committed to doing something.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And, you know, I remember those days, and it was just like, I remember every Saturday morning in the spring, I was always up. I was up running routes, running drills, doing everything that I needed to do. And I remember I'd get done, and then I'd go to GDH for breakfast, and then I'd be chilling the rest of the day. But, you know, so that really kind of set the stage for my senior year, which, you know, I had big anticipations, big ideas for. And, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say my senior year was a failure, but it wasn't as great as I intended it to be. And sometimes that's just how it is. You know, we were a good team our senior year, or my senior year. I think you were a year younger than me.
Yeah.
So that 2014, 2015's team was a great team. It was really the first year of Spangler's defense, and, you know, we were in games, like, we were winning games, like, easily winning games, but it was based off of defense. And, you know, once I came to the understanding of, okay, it doesn't matter about my own stats, it matters about the team. Like, I was able to put my ego aside and, you know, kind of do what's best for the team. But, like, even going back to my junior year, the way I practiced and the way I prepared and the way that I put that huge pressure on myself, like, you could see in my eyes when I would get into a zone. And I remember it'd be crazy, because, like, I wouldn't just tap into that zone in the games. Like, it'd be something I'd be doing in practice. Like, I'd be in a zone in practice to where now, like, I'm going at your throat. Whoever's in front of me, I'm going at your throat. Like, it's not, There's no game. So like I remember like me and Kevin Crawford used to go at it every day in practice, and I appreciated it because he liked to compete, I like to compete, but I used to tell him like you're not gonna embarrass me, you're not gonna beat me. Same thing with Snoop, same thing with Ed when he came in at corner. Like I just liked to compete, and I didn't care who was in front of me. I was just ready and willing to put 110% and get the job done. So I remember like even my junior year, my guys would see me get locked in a zone and like where I'm on the field going crazy. Like I remember my junior year, like I remember I like if I made a big play, and I felt I wasn't getting the ball enough, I'd look at Coach Vaughn and I'd like tell him to keep giving it to me. Keep giving, like I'd signal to him to keep giving me the ball. And sometimes he did, most times he didn't. But it was just something that was fun for me. Because I enjoyed that the competition. I enjoyed dominating my opponent. So going into my senior year, I still had that in me, but I was able to channel it in a way to where it's not always about me. It's about the team. My junior year was just like my junior year of high school. It was about me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that I was being selfish. It wasn't that I was being a bad teammate, but I made the game to the point where it has to be me. And I think all great athletes do that, is they take ownership of that team and they put the onus on them of, if we're going to win this game, I'm going to have something to do with it. I think every great athlete has that in them, and that's their mindset, but there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. Not to say that the way I did it my junior year was bad, but going into my senior year, it was just it was understood that I can be better in certain areas. And that's what my goal was. We were in a lot of games. Our defense put us in a lot of games that senior year. And, I was called on, late in the game or when we needed a big play, hey, go and make this play. And, 9 times out of 10, I'd make that play. And then, going after my senior year, of course, I had big ambitions of going to the NFL. Still do. I'll get there next year. But, of course, I had big ambitions of going to the NFL. So that whole process of, going and training for pro day and doing all that stuff, I was intent on putting my best foot forward. Because I would always compare myself to the guys in our league, in our conference. I'd look at Kenny Cook, I'd look at Matt Hazel, I'd look at what's this boy from Monmouth, Neil Sterling. Like I'd look at all the top receivers, and I wouldn't just look at their numbers. I'd look at their film, and what about their film is better than mine. And for the most part, I couldn't find anybody outside of Neil Sterling that was just a better receiver than me. Yeah, guys had better stats, but they also had more opportunity than me. And that was frustrating for me. It was just like I'm not getting any recognition for being a good receiver because I don't have the stats of these other guys, even though they get more opportunity and their system is more conducive for their success. So that was always frustrating, but I got over it. And going into that whole process of preparing for pro day, I was obviously trying to put my best foot forward. Unfortunately, pro day didn't go exactly as I planned. I actually ran a terrible 40. I ran a 4.83 at 223 pounds, which is dirt slow, as you know, at receiver. So, after that pretty much killed any chance I had at going into the NFL, or getting even looked at by the NFL. Is just running that terrible time. So, but, after that point, I'd always go back to the fact that I know I'm better than this person and this person and this person. And I see where they are. Like they're in the league. Like they're getting their opportunities. So to me, all that said is just keep working harder. Get your 40 time down and, just keep grinding away. So that's what I did. Within 3 months of running that 4.8, I was running a 4.7. I mean, I'm 4.57, my bad. 4.7 is not good. But yeah, I ran a 4.57 within like 3 months of finishing that pro day. So, I knew it wasn't the ability. It was just going to be the opportunity of me getting back in front of somebody who could, give me the shot of playing at the next level. So, that first year out was tough. Like, it was extremely difficult to stay hungry and to stay motivated and to, get up each and every day with the same goal of getting better each day. But, I was blessed to have people in my life. And, this is a part of my story that, it's crazy because I would pray. And like, this is a time where, I had to really lean on faith to get me by, because everything, all the circumstances, everything was telling me to give it up and to stop going and, go be a lawyer and go to law school and all these other thoughts that were, jumping in my head. But, it was at this time where I really had to lean on faith and trust God to open up doors for me. And, ultimately he did, but it took a long time. So my first year out, it was tough, but I was blessed with, being in contact and having access to guys that played in the NFL, guys that train NFL guys, so like I spent that whole first year. I was working out with Alex Smith. He's a 12-year NFL vet, played tight end for the Bucks, and because I was back here in Tampa. And I remember every guy I'd work out with, I'd always pick their brains about what I could do to get better. What do I need to get better? Am I doing this well? Am I not doing this well? And I was always asking them, bro, just tell me straight up so I can so I can correct it. It wasn't so much about me, feeling good about myself. Oh, you do this well. It was about, no, I need to know what I do bad. Like, I need to know what needs improvement. Don't tell me what I'm doing good. I need to know what I'm doing bad so I can make an adjustment and get better at it. So when the opportunity does come, that thing is not going to be weighing me down. And I remember, like, everybody I go to, they'd be like, bro, man, you got it. Like, you're good. All you need is an opportunity. Like, I've seen a whole lot worse players on practice squad. Bro, you can just keep going. And, when I would pray, I'd ask God, if football is for me, then, bless me with people coming into my life to encourage me to, keep it going. But I would say, if football is not for me, I don't want anybody to, look at me, talk to me about football, mention football. If it's not for me, take it completely out of the picture. And he just kept sending more and more people, like Javier Arenas. Javier, and the way I met him was just crazy because, a couple buddies of mine at the time, we were working out at a field, and, I remember we were getting towards the end of the workout, and, they've taken their cleats off and, on their way out the door, and something just told me to stay. Something just told me to stay extra, just sit out there and see what comes. And I remember, like, 10, 15 minutes later, here comes this nice vehicle, pulling up. And I'm like, man, who is that in that nice car? He gets out into the field, starts warming up. And, I just go over there and, strike a conversation. Hey, man, I'm a receiver. You play DB. Like, I didn't know who he was at the time. And then he introduced himself. Like, oh, wow, he'd be a great resource for me to have to get better. And when I tell you, me and him went after it 5 to 6 days a week, every day, bro, we was doing that all year round. Like, it got to the point where he flew me because he split time between Kansas City and Tampa. It got to the point where he went to Kansas City and he flew me out to Kansas City to meet him just to train with him. And like, we had the understanding that when it's between them lines, we getting after each other. We wasn't, oh, they're buddy. He trying to get back into the league. I'm trying to get into the league. So like, we was really, going at each other's necks, trying to make each other better. And I remember that, that was like one of the biggest blessings for me, is because it just made me realize how much harder you can work. A lot of times we think we're working hard until we really have to work hard each and every day in order to get our dreams, achieved. And so that was me the first year. And, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but, I'm talking about an NFL veteran, right? So if it's an NFL veteran of 3 years, per se, let's say, if he's been in the league for 3 years and he sits out a full year, a full season, it's very unlikely that he'll get back into the game. If he sits out 2 years, he's not going to play ever again. That's just the numbers. Football is a revolving door. There's new talent coming in every year, so they're not going to waste their time with somebody who's spent 2 years out of the game of football. And that's for an NFL veteran. That's for somebody who's been established and produced and have made a name for himself in the NFL. I was a guy that, never played in the NFL. never, had made a name for myself, and I spent 2 years out, and then on top of that, I changed positions. So I went from wide receiver to defensive end. You're not supposed to make it. I'm out there competing against guys that have played in the NFL, have done everything that they've done, and I'm competing for, a spot, against guys that have played defensive line their whole lives. So, that first year was tough. That second year was even tougher because at this point, with all that knowledge in my head, I'm like, my window is closing. My window is really, really closing. But on the days I really wanted to quit, because there were a lot of days where I was like, this is crazy. Like myself telling myself, this is crazy. Like, you don't need to be doing this. Your dream is probably not going to happen. Something would just tell me to keep going. Just keep going. And, obviously I know that was God, because he understood that, there was a bigger picture. It's bigger than me. And the crazy thing is like, I used to wrestle with my faith, and I used to be like, man, if God is real, show me this, show me that you're real, show me this. And I remember, obviously this is all retrospective. It's just going back and looking at that time now, the things that I learned and, the tools that I was able to apply were so needed and so necessary before he could elevate me to a certain level that, it made me appreciate that grind. When I was taken out of football, it humbled me. It humbled me completely because football was my identity. Football, like at PC, everybody knew Tobi because of football. Oh, Tobi's this on the field, he's that on the field. They didn't know anything else about me. I used football as my identity. I remember like when we lose games, you could not talk to me after games because I'd be so upset, so visibly upset that you could not talk to me after games because I invested so much into it. And he really had to sit me down and, basically say, hey, your identity is not in football. Your identity is in me, but football is a platform for you to use. And once I started to understand that, all of the benefits of sitting out for 2 years were starting to come to me, like the patience aspect, the faith aspect, learning to trust something that's bigger than yourself, the will. Because a lot of people aren't going to have the will to, achieve their, pursue their dreams in the midst of all this adversity. So that second year, I was doing the same thing. There were days where I didn't want to get up and work and train, but I would go hard for 365. 365 days, I would go hard. I'm talking about, like, people don't understand. Like, when I say go hard, like people every day. Like, I took 1 week off for 2 years, and that was a spring break, and that was it. That was, for 2 years, I took 1 week off for training. Like, people, like, it's crazy. And, I look back on that now, and I understand why that's necessary. Like me now, I don't take breaks. Like, I've just been built, like I've been programmed not to relax. So in the off season, when everybody's enjoying their time, no, like I don't have an off season for me. Like it's grind or nothing, because that's the habitual behavior that I've had to go through to get to this point. So it's just like, I'm not about to steer away from that. I'm not about to go away from it. I'm going to do what got me here. And that's what's gotten me here. So, for those 2 years I was grinding, and then I was blessed with the opportunity of, working out for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at receiver. So one of their scouts, Danny McManus, one of their scouts flew down to Tampa, and, he had a private workout. I had a great workout. I ran like a 4.53, ran all the routes crisp, caught all the balls, did everything, well, and they didn't make a move. So that was in November. That was like November 17th, 27th, 28th, something like that. All right. So I remember in December, I had a workout with the Saskatchewan Roughriders at receiver. So I remember I went down, and that was one of the days where I said, man, I'm not about to drive to Orlando to work out, man. These teams they're just there to get my money. That's what I was thinking. And I remember I got up that morning, and I was like, man, I'm not going. And then something just like, go. I was like, man, I gotta go now. Like, something told me to go. I gotta go. So I ended up making that drive to Orlando, and I remember, working out receiver, doing well. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and it came time to evaluate the offensive lineman, which is great. Everybody needs to be evaluated, but in order to evaluate an offensive lineman, you need to have a defensive lineman to, kind of see where their skill set is, doing one-on-ones. Well, we didn't have any defensive linemen at that workout. So that coach, my head coach at the time, Chris Jones, he said, I want all you skill guys to get down 3-point slants and rush the passer. And I was like, me, I like to compete. So that's just fine with me. So, I got down in my stance and started rushing the passer. And after the first 2 reps, he looked at the guy I came with and he was like, man, he got some pass rush ability. And I remember after the workout, he came up to me and he said, Tobi, we're not going to take you as a receiver. But if you're able to put on 15 pounds, I'll come back down here and I'll take another look at you. And I was like, man, I'm better than all these receivers out here. I was upset. I was like, I'm not going to make your team. You don't know me. And it goes back to that whole, you're not about to tell me what I can't do. And that's always been my mindset is if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove to you with all of my being that you are wrong. So when he said that, it was just like, man, who does he think he is? But at that point I was like, I ain't got nothing to lose. No other opportunity is happening for me. So I got to at least, hear this man out and take it into consideration. And, so I made the decision. I said, hey, I ain't got nothing to lose. Let me put on this weight real quick. And he came back in January and, I did the same thing. I was dominating the offensive lineman that, he was putting in front of me. Oh, just to backtrack a little bit. One of those offensive linemen I was dominating in Orlando happened to play or start 6 games for the Green Bay Packers that next season. So when I tell you I was in the CFL and I saw that, I was like, bro, it's that's my confirmation. Bro, you can do this. Let's keep going. So going back, I worked out for him in January, had a great workout again. And, he came up to me and was like, man, I like you. I like you a lot, but, I can't sign you until, other people on my staff is seeing you. So he said, I'm going to invite you to mini camp and stuff like that. But, the only problem for me was, yes, I put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle to work out at defensive end in January. The problem was February 25th, I had another workout with Winnipeg at receiver. So all that weight I had just gained, I had to cut now in order to go back and work out for Winnipeg. And I remember the day we worked out, I was murdering everybody out there. Nobody could touch me at the line of scrimmage. Nobody could defend me down the field. I was making kids look stupid out there. And they were like, there's a good number of guys out there. I was in shape. I was everything. I was this and I was that. But they opted to sign somebody with the NFL tag on him. So the guy that they signed, his name was TJ. He had spent a little bit of time in an NFL minicamp. And that was the deciding factor in basically bringing him in or bringing me in because we were almost identical in terms of ability. He was a little bit shorter than me. He was about 6 foot. I was 6'2". He ran a 4.48. I ran a 4.52. So there wasn't too much disparity in our games, but, I knew I was a better receiver just by virtue of everything that I could do. So when they didn't, sign me then, I was like, well, it's really just Saskatchewan now. This is the only offer on my plate. So, I committed again to putting on that weight and I went down to minicamp and minicamp was tough. Had I not been preparing the way I've been preparing, 365, like I was just talking about, I wouldn't have lasted in minicamp because I would not have been able to put my body through that tough, grueling, workouts to, really succeed in minicamp. And I remember in minicamp, I did hundreds of reps of one-on-ones. Between the 2 days of minicamps, I probably did 500 and some reps of one-on-ones. It was rep after rep after rep after rep after rep. And, it really separated the guys that wanted to be there because they loved the game and the guys that wanted to be in the game just for the money and just for the fame of being a professional athlete. And you're able to, separate those people really quickly. And I remember on that first day, I was there for 6 days, right? So I was there on a playing day. So basically a playing day is they hold camps all across the nation, and they identify guys they want to bring into a playing day, and they basically let those guys compete against each other for an invitation to minicamp, which is that starts the next day. And I remember, there was like 180 guys out there, something like that, for the playing day. And I think I was one of 2 defensive linemen to get called to go on a minicamp. And I remember, boom, I get done with the playing day. I'm thinking minicamp, okay, now it's time to, start relaxing. It's going to be less hectic and less strenuous on my body. Nope. It was even more strenuous. Like it was disaster. Like it was crazy how many reps we were doing and how often we were running. And I remember I had a heel contusion, and that heel contusion really limits your ability to drive off the ball with your get off and your first step. And I remember I'd have to get out to practice 45 minutes before everybody else got out there just to warm up. And I remember, like, I'd say prayers on the field. I'd be like, God, give me some juice. Give me some juice. I'm feeling dead. And, somehow, some way, I'd find a way to get some energy. And then I remember, like, so the playing day was over. I survived minicamp, and I'm thinking I made the team. I'm thinking, boom, I'm good. Now it starts rookie minicamp. So he brings in all the rookies. So he flies rookies in from all over the country, and there's another minicamp. And after that, there was a veteran minicamp. So I was in that place for 6 days, thinking that I was only going to be there for the maximum 2. And I had to survive. And I think I was one of – nope. There were 3 guys that lasted from the playing day to minicamp. I was the only one that actually was on the active roster the whole season. One of them got cut, and the other one was cut and then re-picked up. It doesn't matter. But, so going into my rookie season, like I said, I'm in training camp with guys that have been playing defensive end for their entire lives. And me, I was just that athletic defensive end. I was willing to do anything to make the team. Fortunately enough for me, I was able to make the team, have a pretty solid year. As a rookie, I was nominated for Rookie of the Year in my first year of playing. That's crazy. Like, sometimes you just don't, think about – you're so focused on the future that you don't sit back and think about it. That's crazy to me, how in my first year ever playing defense that I was nominated for Rookie of the Year. That is crazy. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I got to write that down.
I didn't win the award. But, just being nominated was kind of big. Just for every place, from the place that I came from, it's kind of just a big deal. So I remember going in my sophomore year, which was this past season, I was just anticipating doing a lot more, being more involved in defense, which I was, and, I had a good year. So, that's pretty much the story. The story is just basically one of resilience and perseverance. And for anybody who's watching, anybody that'll hear this, my advice to you is if you believe that you can do something, don't let anything dissuade you from doing it. Don't let your own emotion get in your way. Don't let the opinions of everybody else get in your way, because I heard that so much. I heard that from everybody. Toby, stop doing that, bro. Just stop. Even my head Coach Nichols. Coach Nichols. It was he found out that I had signed to Saskatchewan, and he called me up. He was like, I was this close to telling you just to give it up. Just to and I was like, I'm glad you did not tell me that, because I would have been pissed off. I would have been pissed, because it was just something I kept hearing. But for anybody that's listening, for anybody that will listen or watch, my advice to you is just to keep going, keep pursuing your dream, go after it with everything in your being, and just stay motivated and stay consistent, because consistency is what will separate you from everybody else. Talent is going to do it, but how consistent can you do what you do? That's what separates people. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't value consistency as much. They value talent. Talent is good, but talent will always only get you so far. You have to have a desire, a will, a work ethic, and a consistency to stay at the top. If you ask any elite athlete, if you ask Kobe Bryant, if you ask Tom Brady, you ask, LeBron James, what makes them so great? They're consistent. And consistency leads to dependency. Like, boom, if I know how consistent a player is, that means I can depend on this player because I know how he will respond to the situations that we put him in, and that's so valuable. So that's pretty much my message. Just never give up, keep going. And that's pretty much
Well, what I think is great about your story and, some of the things you're talking about, like I'm just thinking about my students and what I see on a daily basis. And, a lot of them will be like, well, I want to have all A honor roll, or they want to do this sport or whatever. And we might have a good heart to heart. And for like the next week, they're just killing it. They're doing all the great things. But then a month later, they're back, kind of back where they were. And so, when you're talking about consistency, I'm just sitting there writing this stuff down like, yes, like preach it. Like, if any of my students that are listening hear this, that's something that hopefully they can stick with them. Even in like any professional world, I feel like just being consistent, being at work every day, that might be half the battle. And then if you can consistently do a pretty good job, then, you're going to find it. That was definitely something I made sure to underline. Tobi, I appreciate you giving me all this time, man.
No problem, man. I mean, I'm just happy you gave me the opportunity. I know my head is always like jumbled and like it's all over the place a lot of times. But that's pretty much it. It's just like, at some point you have to decide for yourself who you want to be. And at that point, life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs. Life is going to put a lot of stuff in your face to distract you. You have to have a laser focus in order to, achieve what you want to achieve. And, I'm just one of many examples of that. And I'm not even at the point where, I want to be yet. My goal has always been the NFL. I'm not going to stop until I get there. I don't care. I don't care how old I don't care. Like, my goal was the NFL. I'm going to get there next year, God willing. So, like, just because I've gotten to a certain point, the grind don't stop. It continues. The marathon continues, so to speak. So, that's what it's really about. It's about, setting goals, achieving those goals, and then setting new goals. So you're always on this upward progression, upward movement. And, you can look back one day and realize that, it was all worth it. Everything that you went through was worth it. The pain, the sacrifice, the tears, the blood, like everything was worth it because you didn't give up. You stayed true to who you are and you remained authentic about it. And that's something that's lost on a lot of people is a lot of people will, compromise themselves in order to get to a certain spot. And, I look at people like that and I'm just like, man, yeah, you got it, but you left half of yourself back here. And I'm just like, wouldn't it be better to achieve it and still remain, the same person that you were back then? So when people do stuff for money and fame, like it's really lost on me. Like the people I look up to are the guys that do it the right way and, they remain themselves. They don't let circumstances or the environment compromise who they are and what they believe in and what they stand for. So, people ask me all the time, like, who do I look up to? And does so-and-so inspire you? And I'm like, no, bro, like that's a different type of, crowd that they attract. That's not my crowd that, attracts me. So, that's pretty much.
Well, shoot, man, I appreciate it. And you're definitely going to have a lot of new fans after this one. I know especially my 7th grade, 8th grade boys, they all want to be pro athletes. And I tell them all the time, hey, that's your goal, go for it. But I also remind them the days they're cutting up or they're not doing well on whatever. I'm like, hey, you remember that goal we talked about? You need to. And so, I encourage it, but also like to remind them of it to make sure they're staying focused and consistent and all that.
My thing is like, you got to be real with yourself. Why? See, oh man, you're going to get me started on a whole other thing. But, a lot of people want something, but they don't know why they want it. And if you don't understand the reason why you want it, then it's going to be hard for you to achieve it. Because when the rainy days come, you're not going to have anything, foundational that's going to keep you getting up in the morning and going after your goal. So what you have to, I mean, Eric Thomas, all these motivational speakers, allude to it is, what is your why? Why are you doing what you are doing? And, for me, my why was to prove myself right. I had this thought of myself when I was, a young kid, that I was going to be playing D1 football and get to the NFL and get to this. I wanted to prove myself right. So that's really what got me up and got me going every single day, is like, if I stop now, I'm failing myself. Like I'm failing myself. And that's the worst person to disappoint, because I didn't want to be in a courtroom 5 years from now and, be arguing a case and then just stop in the middle of the case and be like, what if I didn't quit? What if I didn't do this? Like, I want to be the ones that said, I expended everything. I, left no stone unturned. I, took every risk, every chance, and it didn't happen. I'd be fine with that. Like, I'd be like, boom, I did everything in my power to go after this goal. But if it didn't happen, that means it wasn't meant to be. That's my approach, But if I would have just quit and just, let circumstance, run me over, then I would have hated myself by now, But that's just one thing that you got to know your why. You got to have commitment. You got to have a commitment level, because commitment is staying true to what you said you were going to do long after the feeling in which you said it has gone. And that's the other thing is just like, especially with kids, but even a lot of adults have commitment issues. Is they say, man, I want this, and they'll do it for a short amount of time, and then when that feeling goes away, there goes their work ethic, there goes their commitment to whatever it is that they said they wanted. I'll use dieting as an example. Boom, a lot of people say, boom, I want to be fit. I want to do this. I'm gonna start the year off going to the gym and eating right. And they do it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. And then slowly but surely they just revert back to their old habits, because, their commitment level isn't there. They're not willing to continually sacrifice, what they need to sacrifice in order to achieve their goal. So, it's just about, understanding your why, consistency, and commitment levels.
Well, I won't take up too much of your time, man. I appreciate everything you gave me. I got a daggum whole notebook of stuff written up right here that I'm going to be preaching on with my students and my players I get to coach. But, if there's any way anybody out there listening wanted to get in contact with you or keep up with you, you want to share like maybe your social medias or something like that? I know definitely my students will be.
Yeah. My Twitter account is at @O__LOUIE 92, spelling out the 90 and then adding the 2. And then my Instagram is Prince of Zamunda 0. If you've ever seen Coming to America, that's where I got.
Daddy, what have we learned this week?
Tobi Antigha's story is a great example of how truly committing to a cause can ultimately lead to the realization of your goals. Let's review this lesson for success. In high school, Tobi made a commitment to himself that he would earn a chance to play collegiate football. This was not easy, and it ultimately resulted in a scholarship from Presbyterian College. Tobi then had to recommit himself to a new path when he entered college in order for him to see the field and make an impact. As his college days came to an end, Tobi then committed himself to playing professionally. This was a goal that he ultimately achieved, even if it did mean switching to an unlikely position. You see, commitment is a word that often gets misused or taken lightly in our society today. To be truly committed to something means that no matter what state you are in or how much you are doubting a situation, you never give up and you keep striving for your goal. There's no doubt in my mind that the world would be a better place if people truly committed to their ventures, families, and etc. Interact with the show on Twitter and Instagram at L4S Show. That's the number 4. You can mention us or you can use the hashtag L4S Show. Again, that's the number 4. Episodes will also be placed on YouTube channel Lessons for Success Show. And now you can download the Anchor app in order to send messages directly into the show. These questions and messages can be featured on future episodes, so go ahead and download the Anchor app today. All of the episodes are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where podcasts can be found. So be sure to like, subscribe, and rate. Thank you for listening to Lessons for Success.
That's the end of our show. Thank you for listening.